We talked about the Illuminati, the French Revolution, the Morgan Affair. Now, let's get into some of this anti-Masonic stuff and find out where it comes from and what it uses. And anti-Masonry in the United States is primarily, almost all of it, is generated by fundamental Christian and evangelical Christian groups. And there are not that many of them, and they don't have that many members, but they are very vocal, they're very intense, and there are even some ministries, some of these evangelical and fundamental ministries, that their whole purpose is to go after and attack Masons. And they have very elaborate websites and publications and whatever. Now, I don't care on this program. I am not interested in trying to convert these people or take them, or to get them away from their views or to try to talk any sense into them. I can't possibly do this. There's no way that we can convert these people. And the reason why we can't is because they are the kind of Christians who believe that if you're not a Christian, you're their enemy. Anybody that isn't a Christian, as far as they're concerned, is some variety of Satanist. And they actually believe they are. At the very least, they think that if you're not a Christian, you're going to go to hell. And, of course, they claim this, we feel sorry for you because you're going to hell. Actually, they don't like you. And the fact that Masons demand that in lodge you show the same respect to the other man's religion that you have for your own, that in itself is enough to make them hate Masonry, and there's no way we can talk them out of it. Now, the truth of the matter is that in Masonry, there is nobody tries to get you to give up your religion or to modify your religion or to have it to be in any way give up your faith. Nobody in Masonry ever does. In fact, you're encouraged to keep your faith. You're encouraged to respect and to use your faith. Masonry is very biblical and Old Testament biblical. So consequently, the Muslim, the Christian, and the Jew in Masonry are all encouraged to keep their faith as strong as possible. It's just that we insist in Masonry that you respect the other man, his faith, and you respect his as much as you respect your own. That's it. But we can't keep the anti-Masons from hating us. And also, I want to point out that every totalitarian regime in this world has outlawed Masonry. They all have. And because Masonry is for freedom, for liberty, for the dignity and the rights of human beings. And so, consequently, that's why we're hated, and that's why we're feared. Now, this means that what I am trying to accomplish with this program and what I'm trying to get across is not to try to convert the fundamental Christians and the evangelicals that do this sort of thing. Can't do anything about them. But however, they have spewed out so much false information that people who believe in conspiracies, who aren't necessarily fanatical religious people, but they do believe in conspiracies, and they do. So they swallow some of this stuff that the fundamentalists, the anti-Mason fundamentalists, have put out. So that's what we want to try to debunk. And one of the ones that they really get a lot of mileage out of is the so-called Palladian, satanic sex magic Palladian cult that is supposedly was, according to the French hoaxer Leo Taxil, back before 1900, right before at the end of the 19th century. And this French tabloid writer and professional hoaxer, Leo Taxil, started a hoax in which he created the idea and tried to document the idea that Albert Pike, the founder of, or the grand old man of Scottish Rite Masonry in the United States, that Albert Pike had created a secret organization that was called the Palladium. And he had a very beautiful woman by the name of Diana Vaughan, an American woman, who was going all over Europe initiating the crowned heads of Europe and the captains of industry and all this into this Palladian sex magic cult, which was Luciferian or satanic. And Taxil wrote, he wrote about this in these French tabloids. And it was like the National, well, I'm not going to insult the National Enquirer because they just recently, I think they just recently got a Pulitzer Prize. And so, no, but these French tabloids were really, really radical. And Taxil wrote for it. Taxil had been a Mason. He got kicked out of the Grand Orient for writing articles against the Catholic Church, and then no sooner did he get kicked out of Masonry than he joined the Catholic Church and then started writing against Masonry. And Taxil, he was really a professional hoaxer. He at one time sent a whole bunch of different forged letters into the French government complaining about the sharks in the Bay of Marseille. He said it's swarming with man-eating sharks. And he sent so many of these letters in from that the French Navy got out there in the harbor of a warship, and they were dropping dynamite charges trying to kill the sharks that weren't there. It's sort of an early version of Jaws, and so that was one of Taxil's hoaxes. Another hoax is he said that there was a sunken city at the bottom of Lake Geneva, and people were going out there and trying to find the sunken city at the bottom of Lake Geneva. Well, when he started this Palladian hoax, he had a lot of fun with this thing, and he got it going to the point where Diana Vaughan was just really a character that people were believing in, and they believed this woman was sneaking around and doing this, all at the direction of Albert Pike, who conveniently was already dead. So Taxil didn't have to worry about Pike complaining because Pike was already dead. But anyway, finally he decided that he that he'd run this thing as far as he could go with it. So he finally put an end to it by saying that Diana Vaughan had converted to Catholicism and seen the error of her ways and had retreated to a convent, and that she was going to spend the rest of her life in prayer and doing good works to try to atone for her sins. Well, it was a secret convent, and of course he couldn't reveal where it was. Well, Taxil thought, well, I'm out of that, and I've finished that off, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. And yet, unfortunately, there was a knock at his door, and he opened the door, and there was the representative of the Vatican standing there and saying, Monsieur Taxil, the Holy Father would like to visit Diana Vaughan in the convent and pray with her. At this point, Taxil thought, now I'm really in it. Now I've got to make a public confession. So he called a press conference. He got about 200 people together from all the newspapers and the church and everybody else, and he came out on stage and he made this confession. He said, I have to admit that Diana Vaughan is actually my secretary, and she was in it with me, and we created this whole thing. Well, they got so mad at him that everything they could throw at him, they threw at him. The gendarmes had to escort him out. Now, this public confession was printed in all the papers and whatever, and yet these, if you go on these anti-Masonic websites, you will find that they still believe this. They still believe that Albert Pike had sent Diana Vaughan out to seduce all the important people in Europe, and that this was this satanic masonry. He even forged a letter from Pike saying that he was founding a Masonic lodge for women so that they could sexually service the Masonic brothers, and he forged this letter, but Pike was dead, so what could Pike do about it? And this is still considered by the anti-Masons to be a factual thing. Let's for a moment here, let's deal with Dan Brown's lost symbol, because we're getting down to when I want to take some calls. Dan Brown's lost symbol, for those of you who read it, it's in the main, and for the most part, very complimentary of Masonry, and those of us in the Masonic craft, we're very pleased with it. It has, however, it does misrepresent a couple of things I'll discuss. Number one, sure, if you donated a couple $1 million to Scottish Rite, they might give you an honorary 33rd, but you would have to go through a lot of Masonry first in order to be able to do that, which is not made clear in the book. This fellow just does this, and he gets his 33rd without all the rest of the Masonic work that he would have to do beforehand in order to do this, and that is not pointed out. One of the things that the lost symbol does that's not too good is it indicates that Masonry is much more powerful in Washington, D.C. than it really actually is. We don't have. I don't think that the government would be brought down if we knew who the Masons were in government. I don't think that's what happened. So this is a little exaggerated. But other than that, the book is entertaining and it's good. It's a little improbable, but it's really good. Now look, at this point we got a few minutes left. Let's take some calls if we got any. Do we have any calls? We don't have any. So we don't have any calls yet. So what I will do for the remainder of this is we'll discuss the so-called New World Order idea that Masonry is supposed to be a part of. It really doesn't come from Masonry in the sense that Masonry has as a principle patriotism and extreme sense of pride in your own country. I won't say extreme, but a sense of pride in your own country and a sense of pride in your own religion, a sense of pride in your own civil structure. And so consequently, the idea that Masonry is somehow conspiring to have a one-world government is just not true. It's not in the nature of Masonry to be that way. Masonry, the nature of Masonry is to promote patriotism for your own country, and at least that's certainly the way it is in England and in the United States. And the one thing that you need to understand is that Masonry is not trying to be a religion. It's not. It's very biblical and all of that, but it doesn't try to be a religion. It tries to inculcate the idea that all men should respect each other's religion equally. And in this sense, so it's not this whole idea that Masonry is behind the New World Order, or if there is such a thing as a New World Order, is not true. Now,